Good morning, race fans. I have a whole laptop full of notes that I think I'm just going to ignore because there's so much to talk about the Atlanta Echo Park Speedway race yesterday that was an absolute banger. It was phenomenal. I'm rating it higher than Daytona. Um, am I going to give it any tens? I don't think so. I'm going to reserve tens. And I'll show you my scoring system in a minute, but I'm going to reserve tens for absolutely extraordinary beyond what we expect. I think yesterday was a phenomenal race, but probably too early in the season to start throwing out tens. But maybe toward the end of the season, we got to go back and you know revisit some of these scores. But what an amazing race. Congratulations to Tyler Reddick, 2311, Michael Jordan. Congratulations to Bubba Wallace on a phenomenal points day. I know he led something like 86 laps, was having a great day, and I think a late mistake in his block on Carson Hocevar frankly led to him not being able to block and take that victory. I think what happened if he'd only done a partial block and just moved up maybe half a lane, but it looked like he moved all the way up to the fence. He basically went too far and kind of took himself out of contention. Hocevar was able to drop below him in a great move. And what can I say? The storylines are 2311, Spire Motorsports, Trackhouse's performance, the Ford's performances. We got a lot of storylines, and I don't know if I'm going to cover everything because I'm just going to let it fly. And as I said, I got a ton of notes that I think I'm just going to ignore. So, um, wow, what an amazing race! Had little bit of everything. I love to see the Trackhouse cars all in the top 10 at one point. SVG having a phenomenal day, and then Larson took himself out on the nose of SVG, not realizing that he SVG was covering the low lane there. And wow, I don't even know where to start right now. But actually, let's jump into the points and what happened there, and then I think we'll finish with Hocevar because as Eric Estep said last night, Carson Hocevar is the best show on four wheels right now. He is the excitement. No matter what, he's the storyline. Even if he doesn't win, just the sheer speed and movement and everything about it. So we'll get into that a little later, but let's get into the points. So I'm a nerd. I admit I'm a nerd. I put together an Excel sheet, and this is the current standings. And you can see Chase Briscoe is right on the cutoff line for me. I know I saw on the NASCAR website they have Shane Van Gisbergen on the cutoff line, but they've got the same points, they got the same score. So um, whatever, it's like either SVG or Chase Briscoe sitting right there at 16. Um, yeah, so depending on how they do it, that's but this is purely points based. Maybe they're doing the Chase, finished higher in a race or something like that, so he's above. Um, but overall, this is what we're looking at. Tyler Reddick in the lead. Bubba Wallace was probably the one of the bigger points movers yesterday because he moved up into points. Now you got 2311 at 1 and 2 in the points standing. Um, maybe I'll fix this yellow here so it's a little easier for y'all to read it. Um, but yeah, Chase Elliott had a solid showings in both races, and then I think, look, you can give Carson Hocevar a lot of grief over that final move, but look what he did for his points. He's standing in fourth, excuse me, going into a road race where he knows road races are not his thing. So he needed to get points in the first two races, knowing that he's going to probably have a bad race three, and then we'll see what happens. But overall, I thought Zane Smith number 5. Like, did you expect that? Joey Logano 6, Ryan Blaney 7. So we got the Penske Fords doing well, and then Daniel Suarez. Again, I want to say Spire is doing really well. Daniel Suarez is aggressive. As I said last week, he kind of races with his elbows out. And you know what? He's really good at Atlanta. He's won it before. And, for what can I say? I think Suarez and Spire are actually a pretty good fit together right now. And we'll see how that plays out, whether he gets his contract renewed for next year or whether they try to go after somebody like a Kyle Busch or any of the other free agents. But I don't know. I think Suarez is putting on a good show. He might get a contract renewal. Brad Keselowski was also doing great. So you got, and Chris Buescher. So you got the two Penske Fords here. Uh, Chevy, so Toyota, Chevy. Is Zane Smith here? I've got, where'd my Excel sheet go? You're going to see, this is, all right. So my lower, this is all my data that I play with down here. This is actually just the, Zane Smith is a Ford. Okay. I wasn't sure. So yeah, you got Ford, Chevy, Ford, Chevy. I think Gregson's a Chevy too. Chevy, Ford, Chevy, Toyota. So overall, pretty good mix. Like to see Ty Dillon up there, just below the cut line. Michael McDowell just below the cut line. But some of the perennial favorites, Kyle Larson, well below the cut line. Kyle Busch, well below the cut line. Austin Cindric had a phenomenal day. Showed a lot of speed. Came from the very back, all the way to the front. Was leading, was contending, and then got caught up in an accident. And he couldn't recover from it. Denny Hamlin also started in the back. And part of that is not the best performance in the Daytona 500, but also because the weather prevented qualifying and practice. So uh, he had to start in the back. And that look at what his scoring is. He made it all the way to the front and then just got caught up in one of the accidents as well. So it's just one of those things where it's kind of rough. C Bell, Christopher Bell is one of those phenomenal drivers that you're always surprised when he doesn't have a good day. Um, yes, he got taken out by Hocevar. I don't think Hocevar intentionally took him out. I think it was a very aggressive move, and we'll get into that because I want to play the replay and why I think Carson Hocevar thought he had a gap. And it's it's pretty evident if you look at it, but also it's pretty evident that he probably shouldn't have tried until maybe 50 yards later. But you gotta wait for those things to play out. So we'll get into that in a minute. But overall, let's look toward the bottom. You got Connor Zilisch at the last of the full-time Cup drivers. Todd Gilliland. Connor Zilisch just got taken out. Like not his fault. He got caught up in a crash. He was up toward the front. He was doing really well. As I said, all three Trackhouse cars were in the top 10 at one point. I really love how SVG has truly improved his oval performance. He's doing well on the super speedways right now. Let's see how he does on the shorter tracks and the very short tracks, and we'll see how that plays out. But overall, I feel like SVG is getting the hang of the ovals and getting a little bit more used to, like, I'm gonna use my bumper. I'm gonna push people out of the way. I'm gonna be a little aggressive. And you know, as I said with Suarez, SVG is learning to race with his elbows out. And then we'll also go to look at Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece started in the back, worked his way all the way to the front, was consistently toward the front toward the end of the race. And I'm a fan of Ryan Preece. He's a hard nosed, amazing driver that can work his way forward. And as long as his doesn't have a crash or an equipment issue, he's going to be in contention. And so you can't. I mean, frankly, all of these top 16 drivers are just amazing. But the ones that surprise you are the Chase Briscoes being on the bubble. Michael McDowell, not Malcolm McDowell, that's an actor. Michael McDowell being below the cut line. Kyle Larson being below the cut line. Kyle Busch being below the cut line. Austin Cindric, Denny Hamlin. There are just some of these people that you're like, wow, they normally have a much better start to their year, but we had, Daytona. It happens. Atlanta, they got caught up in a wreck, got, thrown to the back. Stuff happens. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll see how they do at Coda. But I believe if they're not above the cut line by maybe the fifth or sixth race, seventh race, they're going to have to call an audible and figure out how to get some points. And they're going to have to be more aggressive and start taking some risks. And we'll see how that plays out. But I've also got, I, I'm a nerd. I told you I'm a nerd. I played around. I made, you know, some graphics. Maybe this is a little easy to read. If you're in the black, you're in the chase right now. Um, this needs to be a little wider. There we go. And if you're in the black, you're in the chase right now. If you're in the red, you're not. These are the, top 32. I didn't I it could have made it everybody, but I just made it 16 and 16 just for visual parity. But overall, in the chase, Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott, Carson Hocevar, Zane Smith, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Daniel Suarez, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, Noah Gragson, William Byron, Ryan Preece, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Chase Briscoe currently, with Ty Dillon, Michael McDowell, and John H. Nemechek being the first three out. But overall, super pleased. I thought we had just an amazing weekend with phenomenal races all the way around. And this is where I'm trying to create my own scoring so that we can have some sort of actual metric. And this is where I was talking about how I don't want to put tens in yet, but maybe at the end of the year we got to come and revisit and then rescore and then maybe make a second row or something for all of these. But as you can see, I scored Daytona an 80%, a B, and I scored Atlanta an 86. Maybe I'm being too conservative here, but enjoyment 9, racing quality 9. I thought a lot of good passing, a lot of good runs, strategy. Overall, I thought this was really good. Racing strategy, people were making good calls, bold moves, and what can I say? I thought the strategy was pretty good. Tires. Now, for this scoring system, 7 is the baseline. If you think it's good, you add to it. If you think it's bad, you subtract to it from that number, if that makes sense. So at Daytona, tires weren't a factor. Tire strategy wasn't a factor. I put both of those into the category tires. So it's, if the compound is breaking down, that would fall into this category, whether the tires themselves are a factor or whether during pit strategy you're all right, I'm taking 0 tires, 2 tires, or 4 tires. I'm kind of rolling that all up into one tire category. And I thought at Atlanta, it was an 8. The strategy actually mattered. You saw people moving as they were coming off pit lane, choosing to take 0 tires, 2 tires, or 4 tires. And you also saw when the guys who took 4 tires, you saw a lot better movement by them on the track. So definitely thought that was an issue. And then passing. I thought passing in this race was phenomenal. We had the most lead changes in the first 2 races of the year that we've ever had. So I think that's awesome. Yes, it's the same couple of guys cycling for a while, but you had people coming from the back all the way to the front. You had people falling to the back and then working their way up. And we're going to talk about Carson Hocevar a lot because I don't know. As I said, he's the storyline. He is the show. He is what is creating the drama and the interest. Because remember, he got a tire going down at the beginning, had to pit off cycle, and then he was a lap down. Then he works his way back in, and then his right side window comes out. They have to use self tappers, screw it back in, comes out, and he's 2 laps down. Then he has to work his way back into the field. He's leading the field for a little. Sorry, after the tire, he was leading the field, and then he got the window thing, and then after the window, he's working his way back up, and you know he had to get 2 lucky dogs to get back onto the first lap, and then he's back into the mix, and he scored stage points in stage 2. I mean, that is just some aggressive, phenomenal driving, eating up ground, and he was an amazing storyline during the race yesterday. So what can I say? I look, you love him or hate him, he's the story. He's the excitement. He's that unknown variable that can make the race amazing or horrible at the same time. Like, what can I say? I'm a fan. He's one of the probably 20 drivers I cheer for, but I do enjoy it because I like the aggressive driving, the take no prisoners attitude. Yes, I think he is maturing, but he does slip back and have some of those inexperienced mistakes sometimes, but I don't think shooting the middle yesterday was one of them, and we'll get into it. So, all right, let's uh let's make some people angry. So, all right, friends, here we are. This is I got us right at, yeah, 31:54 is when NASCAR overtime, you can see it over my shoulder there, um, splash screen was right after they interviewed MJ. And so we're in, you know, they've started up, they're not to the restart line yet. And let's kind of let it play out. Because what I think you're gonna see Bubba Wallace start fading down and then he comes back up. But Carson Hocevar had made his move when Bubba Wallace started to fade down. You can see he's a little lower here. And Christopher Bell had faded up. So you have them both separating out a little bit. So they're creating the gap. But both Bell snapped down a little bit later when he kind of saw what was happening and saw Hocevar was shooting the gap. And Bubba Wallace drifted up. And so you're gonna see it. And I think there was a millisecond when Carson Hocevar saw the gap and he saw it developing. And if he maybe waited a little bit, but he had Ross Chastain right on his bumper pushing him. So there was no way to kind of check up and prevent the wreck. And he couldn't time the gap correctly. And if he could have timed the gap correctly, we would all be touting this as one of those amazing moves. It reminds me of when Keselowski did it back in the day. I think it was Texas. And they talked about it a bunch on the broadcast. And this is one of those. Was it the broadcast or was it it might have been one of the other YouTube videos I watched. But it was this is one of those, if it works, it's a bold, amazing move. If it fails, oh, you're an idiot. And I don't think people are seeing Bubba Wallace fading down toward the bottom, Christopher Bell, drifting a little bit up, but they both, boom, correct back to the middle. And watch what I'm talking about, and we'll let the replay play as well. So here they are. There. Tough to see on that angle, but Wallace drifted down. They're going to show the replay in a second. And I feel bad for Christopher Bell because I do like him as a driver. He's a phenomenal driver. But watch as Wallace drifts a little bit down toward the bottom and Bell drifts a little bit up. That is the gap that I think he sees. And can we rewind? All right. Here we are. This is the first restart. This is the live. And then they yeah, see, right at the curve there, right at the I wish I could get this better angle. It's just tough with, I'm using the YouTube to do this. I wish I had a. All right, so they're crossing there, start finish line. There was just a little dip, a little dip. Now, if Wallace had decided to hug the bottom line and Bell was drifting up, you can see what he saw. Now, yes, super aggressive, but I don't think it's like this egregious, oh my God, you're the worst human in the world, like that they want to make it out. They, unfortunately, Carson Hocevar, because of his youth and pushing and crashing and not really being apologetic about it, doesn't have the good karma, doesn't have that. See, look, you can see the gap there. That's maybe the best angle. Let's see if. Yeah. So, all right. So from behind, and then we see, yeah, Bubba Wallace drifted. Like it looked like he was going toward the yellow line, going toward the bottom. Same thing with Bell. So there was just that little bit. And if it worked, it would have been an amazing move. We all would have touted it as bold. And but you can't blame the kid. And then this is the second one. And Carson again had an amazing move here to get around Bubba. And I gotta say, the kid can drive. He just he's just got to get some more experience and get realize that was the move right there that I mentioned earlier, that Bubba went too high. Let's see that one again. Bubba went too high. He basically just, it was too much of a motion of the wheel, and he just went too far. If he'd only gone half a lane and did a partial block, he could have stayed in front of both Reddick and Carson Hocevar. But Hocevar saw it coming. He dropped to the middle, went around. He's side by side with Reddick, and of course Briscoe gives the other Toyota the push, and yeah, and then Carson goes up to block. Smart block on his part. He gets a bump from Suarez there, stays fifth in the draft. And if Suarez, maybe Suarez didn't have the pedal to give him a longer push, but or maybe Suarez just really doesn't like Hocevar. We'll see. But it would have been smart of Suarez to give a big push. Now here we have Suarez giving a push again. So that's where I just don't know if he didn't have enough pedal or if he was like, no, I don't want to help you. I just don't know. But congratulations to Michael Jordan, Tyler Reddick, and frankly everybody, because I really felt that was one of the best races I've seen in a while. I'm a fan, and what can I say? Everybody, please like, subscribe, comment below. I'm going to be tracking everything, and hopefully, my spreadsheet makes sense to you guys, and we'll keep filling it out. And if you have any questions, comments, drop them below. But please like and subscribe, and let me know if you have any questions, if you want me to cover more angles, if you want me to do a more in-depth analysis of the race, or do something more like this where I kind of go, all right, here's that key moment we should look at in replay and kind of go over it again and again. Because I think if you factor in, because everybody's talking about Christopher Bell fading up and then coming back down. They're not watching Bubba Wallace fade a little bit. It looked like he was angled toward the bottom. He was going to cut the bottom very tight, but then he changed his line a little bit more toward the middle. And I do think that should be part of what we look at when we're discussing that particular move, because if you're sitting there with where Carson Hocevar was, and you see Bubba Wallace angling toward the bottom and Christopher Bell drifting up the track, to me, I can see why he made that move to try to cut up in the middle. And again, I think the timing was off because he got a big push from Chastain right then. But God, if they could have waited 20 feet, 25 feet, 50 yards, I don't know. It may have developed or it may have shut down, but maybe that's where Hocevar should have been giving Bell a nice big push and then waited and then dropped to the middle. I don't know, but we'll see. I'm sure everybody's pissed at Hocevar. But overall, I'm not. I thought it was an aggressive move, and in the end, Hocevar was able to score points for the day with his stage points and a solid finish fourth. And I guess Suarez finished fifth. So overall, great day for Spire. I thought Trackhouse had a great day. Obviously, 2311 had a phenomenal day. They're 1-2 in the standings. So everybody comment below, like and subscribe, and let's get this conversation going.